All right.
Hello. Okay, so on my most recent trip to Japan, I was fortunate enough to go and learn traditional Japanese knife making from a master. Over in Osaka, Japan, me and my friend, we had met someone named Jizo. He does tours of Osaka. He helps get people involved in the culture, especially foreigners. He shows them around places they've never seen before. We got to explore a lot of Buddhist traditions and learn about a lot about that. But to top it all off, he was able to get us in touch with a Japanese sword master. He's like the third generation. We traveled to his house, which is half house, half just blacksmith workshop on the bottom. And I just wanted to showcase some of the steps throughout that process of learning how to make a knife from scratch, because that was honestly one of the most fun things I've ever done. And I got to keep the knife, so I also want to show you some of how the knife cuts and some of the stuff I was cooking with it, because I was chefing it up over there, if I do say so myself. So check that out.
I see it. You see the white part?
Yeah, I was gonna say I can see.
So that's good. So just a little bit of that little part because you want to keep some of it. Remember? Don't do it too hard, bro. Focus. It's good. Really hard. Yeah.
Oh,
that's it. No. All right.
Was not expecting that, especially from the amount of times I put my thumb right on the blade edge.
I will say some of the more interesting steps of the process that I actually didn't even know they did is Fuji-san took both of the knives that we were working on over to a different station where he essentially sandblasted them with small shavings of iron, small iron filings, basically like an iron powder, an iron dust. And he did that to add texture back onto the backside of the blade, the part that's not the blade edge, so right behind that. It's kind of like on some pieces of metal you'll see like a little dented, like hammered look. This was even smaller because of the size of the particle that he was using. And he had me do mine, and he did his own as the example before. And he described it as it was adding texture along that backside of the blade to add like a nice contrast visually and a nice differentiation there. And then after that we went and we added on all the oils and such, which I also thought was cool.
I agree he should do this part. Because I do want to hide the crimes that I committed earlier.
Stuff that he put in there.
でこれが固まってあとここ埋める
This was definitely the craziest part of the experience, and also this was the final touch that he added. He was explaining to me that he doesn't use pins when he's adding a handle to his knives. Traditionally, in Japanese culture, when they're making the knives, they kind of just heat an epoxy and they melt the knife in there, and then as that epoxy expands, it fuses the wood and the metal together, and it holds pretty much forever. Assuming you don't do anything to damage it. And I thought what was craziest about this experience was the fact that he just took this piece of metal that was already hot, because we were doing all of this different metalworking to it, and he stuck it with his bare hands into an open flame. And then he did that repeatedly, because he's like, oh, you know, it's not hot enough. While the blade's glowing, and he goes, grabs a hammer, and he hammers the bottom of the handle onto that little tang on the bottom. And I was just like, that was probably one of the coolest moments of the entire experience, especially like seeing the smoke wisp around. And he was just like, yeah, you know, this is casual, nothing crazy. This is an average Tuesday for me. Fuji-san is definitely one of the coolest people I've met in Japan, by far. I think one of my favorite parts of the experience was definitely the fact that I had been practicing Japanese and learning for so long, because even though there were some words that I couldn't understand, because these were just not in the vocabulary that they teach you. I mean, they're not teaching you a lot of phrases and words that go along with like metalworking and craftsmanship. But because of the fact that I have an engineering background and have worked with my hands for so long, there were instances where, okay, Fuji-san says something that I don't understand. I don't actually know what that word means. But because we're hands-on, I'm working with my hands and we're doing the metalworking, I'm like, I didn't understand what you said in terms of the vocabulary, but I know exactly what you want me to do in this moment with this knife that we're working on because of the craftsman background. So I thought that was cool. Like, you know, across the different cultures, we were still able to kind of relate and communicate that way. Because I was like, oh yeah, I don't understand what that word is you just said, but I do understand that you want me to get this blade edge to a 15-degree angle on both sides. And he was like, yeah, that is what I was saying. And even our guy Jizo was like, yeah, that is basically what he was saying. He's like, honestly, you would understand it better than me just from the engineering perspective. But it was cool because even people who aren't engineers, like he was telling me stories, Fuji-san, of other people who had come and they either buy knives from him, or sometimes he does do like little workshops for people and let them learn knife making from him. And he's like, yeah, you know, kind of regardless, it's definitely an experience that is kind of once in a lifetime. I think next time I go, now that I have that knife, because I was able to ship it back to me, I want to see if I can take it up a notch from there and go learn how to make a katana from scratch. Or maybe something smaller, maybe like a wakizashi, because it would be easier to ship here and mount to my wall of weapons. But I was definitely a 10 out of 10 experience. I highly recommend anybody who has plans to take a trip to Japan to go and visit Fuji-san in Osaka, learn how to make a knife from scratch. Because you can buy the knife, sure, but it's way cooler to go make the knife in Japan, then take it home and cook it with it. Because now, you know, I'm here, I'm cooking with my friends, I'm cooking for people, I have guests over, and they're admiring the knife. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, nothing crazy, I made this one. And then you also make some awesome food, and it's just like, it's a really cool conversation starter. And that was definitely a top tier experience, so I highly recommend anybody who travels to Japan, go and make a knife from scratch. You definitely will not regret it, especially if you love cooking. I think next I'm probably going to 3D model and 3D print some kind of dragon shaped knife holder, because right now the knife is just kind of gently resting inside of the box that he gave me with it, but I think it needs something to keep it on display, something to make it a little fancier. So yeah, that'll probably be something that I get to at some point in another whenever. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this kind of content and want to see me fill up this wall with more weapons, masks, swords, props, whatever, make sure you leave a follow, and yeah, there'll be more stuff up there eventually, slowly but surely. Thanks!